Morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to come speak with you. And Carrie, thank you for inviting us. My name is James Tritten. To help you remember it, Tritten like kitten. If I may introduce my wife in the back corner, Tracy, maybe just wave your hand briefly. She doesn't want to stand up. So the two of us run Fort Lowell Records, and we've been asked to come here and speak with you today about reflection. I'm going to take what I believe is a safe assumption that all of us collectively here, possibly even everyone, maybe even across the world, we're all invested in the idea of living some kind of healthy life, healthy style of living. You decide what that means, what the definition of health is for you. Part of that, and I think this is the reason we're all here today, would be that we probably all agree we want to be part of let's use the word positive community, a supportive community. Again, you can define the community however you see fit. For me, I feel reflection is absolutely essential to this healthy style of living and creating this community that, again, I think we're all in agreement of we want to create here. I think reflection is absolutely required for this, if you will. Much in the way that reflection is required to drive a vehicle. If you think about it, driving a vehicle, you literally couldn't do without utilizing reflection. And so for me, I kind of feel like driving a vehicle is sort of a perfect metaphor, if you will, for demonstrating why reflection is so important. So allow me to elaborate. Let's think about this. We've all probably been in a position of speeding down the road, right? What's the first thing you do when you drive by the police officer, the friendly police officer that's on the side of the road? The first thing you're doing as you're driving, you're reflecting. You're looking back in your past. And ultimately, what you're probably hoping for is that as you're going forward in life, and you know you were doing something wrong in life, what you're probably hopeful for is that your past isn't going to catch up with you. Because if it does, you're going to get in trouble, and you're going to have to pay the price, right? So maybe you're going to change your behaviors. So by reflecting to your past, right, might help you with what you're going to decide to do later. From a community point of view, it may be a matter of that, again, you're driving down the road. We're going to use this driving, by the way, all the way through. So, you're driving down the road, and perhaps maybe it's a single lane road. And I don't know if hopefully everyone will agree with me on this, but, you've probably seen that driver before on that single lane road that's maybe driving a little slower than we all want to drive. And if you're that driver, maybe for a reason you are, you look in your rearview mirror and you start to see this community building up behind you. Probably not exactly a happy community. So you have a choice. You could pull over and allow people to pass, right? You could do your part in the community by reflecting back, taking a look at your surroundings and making a decision, and possibly helping lend to a positive community, right? The flow of traffic is going to pass. Everyone's going to be happy. You're probably going to get some highs, high fives when they drive by, and everyone's happy. But if you don't pull over, you're that person in the community that's kind of causing a problem and not exactly making the community work in a positive way. So for me, this is kind of how reflection starts to stand out of why it's so important to reflect and do things. Well, I kind of feel an example of today, using this analogy of driving a vehicle, if you will. I think we've all been gifted an opportunity by Carrie and her team to join a chartered bus that Carrie's provided for us today. And by asking us to talk about reflection, ultimately what I want to do is take a drive down memory lane. And I want to reflect. I want to take a moment this morning to reflect on the work that Tracy and I have done together as Fort Lowell Records for the last 15 years, share some stories with you, and hopefully demonstrate to you how we've been using reflection in the work we do. And hopefully you'll agree it's helped create positive environments in the communities that we've done this in. So that being said, join me. By the way, I haven't figured out who the driver is. I'm figuring it's either JJ or it's an automated vehicle, a self-driving vehicle. Oh, well, yeah, yes, we have a remote too. That can drive that as well. All right. So Story starts in 1993. That's when Tracy and I met. By the way, this won't be a love story, but we're going to start there for a minute. I'm very fortunate to be one of those people in life that when I met, literally when I saw Tracy for the first time, I knew I'd marry her. I have a witness if anyone wants to challenge that, but it's a real thing. But also in 1993, that's when we started our music career. That's why we got together. I was starting a band, literally 17 years old, coming out of high school, wanted to be a rock star for my life. And this really cool lady had an awesome voice, and she wanted to join our band. So for years to come in our career, in various existence of that career, Tracy and I both have been very fortunate to receive support from people like us with what we're doing now, meaning like other record labels. And maybe I should take a quick second just to double check. Does everyone understand what a record label is and the fact that Fort Law Records is a record label? Anyone? Okay, cool. So in all of our years of being musicians ourselves, we've received countless amounts of support. We've had great success in our time for what we measure to be success. We've toured the country countless times. We've had music. She's actually had music on One Tree Hill and Dawson's Creek before we ever moved here. We weren't even living in Wilmington, and yet we were part of Wilmington. We used to play the Wee Festival, if anyone remembers that. We used to come up and play the Wee Fest. So we've had multiple records out, doing all sorts of things. And in 2006, we found ourselves, metaphorically speaking, driving into Tucson, Arizona. We moved to Tucson, Arizona in 2006. And at this point now, we're 13 years deep into our career with multiple records, all these things happening, and a lot of experience, if you will. In Tucson, we're there for what I call the honeymoon years, if you will. When you move to a town, you always want to take time to get to know people, learn the city. We're basically tourists, if you will, in our own hometown, just to get familiar with things. So that's what we did for the first couple of years. She had a new record come out in those years. And as we're driving all of those first 3 years, the sun is shining the whole time, metaphorically speaking again. We're driving through Tucson, living there, loving it. The sun is shining. It's gorgeous. And we're just witnessing all this amazing talent through Tucson, all these beautiful things, much like here in Wilmington, which we'll get to. But there, at that time, that was our experience. That was where we were. That was the road we were on. If anyone's ever been to Tucson before, or really anything out west, not on the water but in the desert, the sunsets there are unreal. They're otherworldly, truly. In 2009, metaphorically speaking, we're driving down the road and the sun's starting to set on our honeymoon, if you will, of living in Tucson. And her and I are looking at each other and we're recognizing all this beauty that's happening. If any of you are familiar with the Tucson and the music industry, you might already be thinking this. You may have heard of bands like Calexico. Nika Case was living there at the time, but Hal Gelb, Giant Sand, these are some of the bigger names. Linda Ronstadt, of course, is the biggest of all the names that comes out of Tucson. But there are a couple of names that Tucson was known for. But as Tracy and I are driving on the road and the sun's starting to set, we're really starting to recognize that there's a lot more talent out here. There's a lot more happening in Tucson that we really believe people need to know about. And as we're driving, and we've got our collective caravan of cars around us, our peers, right, in our community. We're all driving together. We're all in either the same lane or we're in similar adjacent lanes. We start talking to everybody, and we're like, do you see these guys? Do you realize what they're doing? Do you see? And we start recognizing that the answer was no. Nobody else was quite grasping the talent in the way that we felt we were. At this point, it's nearly 16 years into our career, 2009 now, and she's at 4 records deep. I think I had 3 or 4 records of my own at that time. Again, a lot of experience that ultimately gifted us a vehicle that we were driving in that moment in life, the lane that we were in, the place of the road that we were in, the vehicle we were in, enabled us to provide something to our community by providing a reflection forward, by turning on our tools of our, let's call them headlights, and shining a light on what we were seeing that enabled so many other people around us to realize, wow, as the sun's starting to set and now Mother Nature's no longer shining on this natural talent, we're in a position, using our experience and our tools, we're in a position in life that we can provide that to people. So we started a record label. We literally, to kind of tie into the metaphor, we literally sold a car. In fact, it was a 1976 CJ5 yellow Jeep with 35-inch tires and a 4-inch lift. It was a real rock crawler. If you're familiar with any of that lifestyle, it's pretty fun. But we sold it, and that's what we did. We're like, let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's start supporting our peers. Let's support people that we believe in with their art. So we started a record label, and we started putting out records. So over here on this side of the room, I guess my right side, your left side, that is literally the entire catalog of all vinyl records we've ever released from day one. So when we're done here today, if you want to take a peek at it, it's kind of cool. But the far left corner at the bottom, the pink one, says Young Mothers. That's actually the very first record that we put out. All the way up to the one that you can kind of see from here, says Alfal on the top. That comes out in 3 weeks. But so we started a record label, and it was if you have any opinion of what we're doing here in Wilmington, that's what it was doing in Tucson. It was the same idea. There was a lot of positive vibe in the community. People were excited that we were highlighting other talent, doing these kind of things. So now it's going. We're 2009, 2010. Things are going good. We're having a lot of fun. We're in a really cool vehicle that's got these really cool lights, and we're able to help other drivers that are ahead of us or beside us or even behind us see what we're seeing and appreciate what we're seeing. So 2011 rolls around, and there you go. 2011 rolls around, and all traffic comes to a halt. Unfortunately, there's a horrific accident on the side of the road that has taken the lives of 6 people. And what I'm speaking about, if you're familiar with what took place in January 2011 in Tucson, is the Tucson tragedy. Most people know of it from Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. It was a mass shooting that took place at one of her speeches. It didn't take her life, fortunately, but it did take the lives of 6 other people. At that time, where we were with our peers around us and the road and all drivers coming to a stop, our friends that are around us realized, hey, we're all musicians. We're all just a bunch of punk rockers, basically. We're musicians. We're in our lane. I'm not a medical profession. I don't know how to help these families in that sense. But I do know by putting positive energy into this world, kind of like you might say the butterfly effect. I'm definitely a believer in that idea of the butterfly effect. But just if we can do what we do and do it with a positive motion, I'll bet we can move this traffic along in our community. We're going to let the professionals do what they need to do to take care of these families, but we're going to do something that's going to enable them to do it. And we're going to create a record that is a fundraiser that provides them with resources. And so then we created this project called Luz de Vida. So this is the actual vinyl record itself, up on the screen too. So this was record number 7 for us in our catalog. By the way, Alfal is record number 76, just to put in perspective of this was number 7, and so the far left side of the table over there. It was inspired by, in the liner notes here, our actions were solely inspired by Leonard Bernstein. Basically, we included this quote in the liner notes here. This will be our reply to violence, to make music more intensely, more beautifully, more devotedly than ever before. That was it. We weren't there to tell people, stop selling guns. We weren't there to tell people, hey, do this or don't do that. That wasn't our lane. That wasn't our role. We were just musicians. We just wanted to put a record out, as simple as it is. But we recognized by doing that, it would help just create this positive flow. So we did it. And I'm very proud of it. We raised, I think it was about $60,000 in total for the community. We partnered with an organization called Homicide Survivors, and they were the ones that were actually professionally working with the families and such and providing those resources to support them. So that had been created then. All right, so fast forward to 2018. Fast forward to 2018. Tracy and I now moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. If you want to understand why we did that, come talk to me afterwards. We'll get into that story separately. So we moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. Just like in Tucson, we're like, all right, let's kind of have that honeymoon phase. And I think the first year we lived it up. I think we're still paying for living it up, actually. But we lived it up as tourists. We lived downtown. We were going out every night. Weren't we, John? Going out pretty much every night and day. Just having a wonderful time, really loving the city and taking it in. We're like, this is absolutely going to be home for us. We felt very confident about that. Very, very excited to be here. So, unfortunately, as some may know, some may guess, or remember, 2020, again, driving down that road, in our metaphorical example here, driving that road, now we're in Wilmington, North Carolina, and not only did all traffic come to a halt in Wilmington, it came to a halt across the world. And what I'm speaking about is the murder of George Floyd. If you remember, with Memorial Day week, Tracy and I were actually celebrating our 20th year anniversary that particular year, and unfortunately, that wasn't exactly a time for us to be celebrating anything. And so again, we're in our lane, we're in our vehicle. We understand what our vehicle is. We understand what our capabilities are. And we're watching all the other things happening. Remember all the protests here. Again, we literally live 2 blocks away. And we could hear all the protests from our bedroom. And we were having our own conversations in the house of like, well, we want to go out there? Are you ready to go create a sign and let's run out? Like, what do we want to do? And again, we just, driving down the road, reflecting, right? We reflected back to our past. And we remembered what we did with Luz de Vida, and we remembered there was a tragic accident in our home then that, we knew what we did and we knew how it had affected things. And we thought, hey, why not? Let's do it again. Let's just create another record just create this positive motion. There was never an element of telling anybody, you're wrong, you're right, do this, do that. No, we're just going to make a record. That's it. I'm just going to put some positive energy into this world going forward. So we created Grow. And with Grow, we decided to do something a little different. In fact, I'll try to demonstrate this over here, maybe visually from this sense. In the catalog scheme of things, Grow is here, right? And Luz de Vida is right there. So we had now done about, 6, 7 other records in time. And so, and on top of it, I mentioned we've had our own success of putting out records. So I started recognizing that vinyl records themselves, physically vinyl records, they're more than the music that actually goes on the vinyl, right? You got the vinyl here, so there's music on that, obviously. And a lot of people kind of associate, when they think about records, they think about the cover art. They're excited about that, right? So you got the cover art, you got the music. Isn't that what makes a record? Well, I started recognizing that there's a lot of other canvases for expression with records. There's the back of the record. There's physically the artwork on the record itself. Chet Childers, skateboarder. There are the liner notes of the record themselves. And so with Grow, what we decided to do, again, reflecting back and like, what can we do different? What can we do to achieve the same results but also add to that? We decided to partner with other artists within the local community and give them their own voice within our project. And so every element of Grow is literally made by a different party or person or artist within Wilmington. So again, like I said, Chet Childers, he's a skateboarder. He did the artwork on the record itself, the B side of the record. The cover art's James Williams. He came to us from New Elements Gallery down in front. He was represented by them. We've got the Dreams Academy on here. We've got Third Person Project. They're on the liner notes as well. On the back of it, Trevor Van Meter, Hey TVM, gave us artwork there, as well as Trevor was the one that gave us the title of Grow. The whole idea of just, again, we're just going to do something positive to try to get that traffic to start moving again. I'm not here to move over to a lane that I'm not familiar with. I'm not here to do stuff that I don't know how to do. I know how to put records out, though. And with Grow, what was really kind of cool is that it ended up providing 4 major kind of benefits for us. For one, there were 5 children, I think there might have been 6, but there's 5 children for sure that were awarded scholarships from the sale of Grow. By the way, I also want to highlight, for me, what was really fascinating with the Grow project was the entire thing came together within about 24 hours total. All parties were committed. All music was to me in about 2 weeks. That record, the concept of it happened that week of Memorial Day, and the record was out in October, in print, in our hands. And if anyone's familiar with the way the music industry works, that's not normal at all. So it was really kind of cool to see how everyone came together. So to share with you the logistics behind that, literally the entire manufacturing costs were donated 100% to us for that project. And so that's how then all of these scholarships were enabled. We partnered with a local chapter of the NAACP with Miss Maxwell, if you're familiar with who she is. We partnered with her and gave all the proceeds to her, and then they made scholarships available. So that was one major benefit, of course. For Tracy and I, very selfishly, prior to that, we were very focused on just simply our existence in Wilmington, again, being tourists, having fun, in our own music. But what it did is for us, literally shining our light ahead for everyone else to see, enabled us to realize the beauty of Wilmington and what was here. We literally didn't. I mean, I don't mind sharing that, but I remember having those conversations of going, holy crap, I didn't realize how much wonderful talent is here. And so that motivated us to then continue doing. And I'm going to come back over here to highlight this one more time visually. So to put in perspective, Grow is right here. These are all the things that we've done since Grow. I'm absolutely positive this would not exist if Grow didn't happen. Now, I think some people ask, do we only represent Wilmington artists? We don't. We work with many, many other artists. But even to use this as an example, every one of these projects to follow all were inspired by Grow. And so that in itself, using reflecting to our past, but also reflecting forward, it only helped us. It literally helped us grow in our life, which is really, really a beautiful thing for us to witness. So the other part of it, two more benefits were this. If you remember, we talked about the story with the Blue record to start, Luz de Vida telling the story of Tucson. Well, you're probably looking at the title in front of you here, Luz de Vida 2. So by us driving down this road, the traffic's happening, the accident's there, we're going to do our part to move forward, and we're going to shine our lights ahead and help provide that reflection. That reflection was so bright that Tucson, who's driving behind us, they saw the light. The folks that were representing the Luz de Vida project from 10 years earlier, they recognized the benefit of what we were doing with Grow and said, hey, let's do another one. Let's do another Luz de Vida. Unfortunately, homicide's not coming to an end, and they're there permanently to provide resources for people having to deal with that type tragedy. So we created Luz de Vida 2. So that was really cool. That was fun. By the way, with the Luz de Vida projects, what's really fascinating and very honorable for us is that these were projects that we partnered with actually major music names in the industry. With the first Luz de Vida, we were working with bands like Devachka, Spoon, Nico Case was on that one, Oza Motley was on that, Jimmy Eat World was on that record. So we were actually fortunate to reach out at a national level because of the cause. That gave us that outlet. That exposure helps us with all the younger talent that we work with. That enables us to be in a position to have a much greater voice now, to be able to help out people, which is really kind of cool. With the second Luz de Vida 2, we worked with Amos Lee, Dr. Dog, Calexico's on that one. But actually, some of you might be familiar, there's actually a star from Wilmington that's on there, Larange. He's a hip-hop artist. He's a producer. He's from Wilmington. And he's on that record. So that was kind of where we started tying in things that we do in Tucson, things that we do in Wilmington, bring them all together. So that was kind of cool, too. Lastly, from the Grow project came our Luz de Vida, our This Water is Life project. Now, with this analogy, again, driving down the road. We're in Wilmington, right? So we've been driving in Wilmington since 2018. When we pulled into town, Tracy was very quick to recognize, hey, there's this body of water to the side that it's polluted, and we really need to be cautious about it, and we need to understand what's going on with it, and we need to not drink the water when we get into Tucson and we start living there. And so we're like, all right, so on a personal level, we're like, check, we do our thing, we do our homework, and we feel good about our decisions and how we exist with the water around us. But as 2020 came and we did the Grow project, she kind of noted, like, hey, that water's still there. And as we come out of Grow and traffic's starting to move again and everyone's starting to kind of come back to life, if you will, we're going ahead and she's, like, hey, I'm looking ahead and I know you're driving, but I see ahead, like that water's, that's not going away. That's still a problem. That's still something happening here. So she had said, by that time we had graduated to another vehicle, right? This one had one of those little flashlights on the side that the policemen have, or people that go hunting have. She said, hey, can you take that light there and can you shine that over to the side for a quick second? And just can we see what's going on over there? And so we gave birth to a project we called This Water is Life. Now, we used the same format that we kind of did with Grow of partnering with many people, and that was kind of the idea of this. Luz de Vida and Grow are very specifically fundraisers. Those projects we created for a very kind of single transaction, let's raise money, give it to an organization, and then we're going to move on. Because of Tracy's observation with what's going on with the water and kind of our unfortunate gut feeling that this isn't changing, this isn't going away, we decided to create a different kind of project and one that was self-sustaining, and if we're successful, just it's indefinite. It won't go away. Well, if you know me in 20 years, I'll probably still be releasing records called This Water is Life. And what we decided we want to do with this record, up until that point, we were very much just a rock and roll label. That everything from that point back, it's pretty much rock and roll music. It's a safe bet. But just if you're familiar with what we do in the community, we're involved with doing a lot of DJ work, and we're fans of all different kinds of music, not just rock and roll. That's just kind of what the label started with. But at this point, we decided, look, this message of the water it's bigger than just a single audience. We really need to try to get out to multiple people. So we decided to embrace hip-hop music. And this is the first time our label ever released music for a different genre. And we're really excited about that because we feel like this message needs to get out to as many people as possible. So we created a project that highlights one Wilmington hip-hop artist on one side of the record and then one Wilmington rock and roll artist on the other side of the record. The main purpose of This Water is Life was to give a platform to both Cape Fear River Watch, some of you might know Dana Sargent, and then Andy Wood from Coastal Plain Conservation Group. And what we wanted to do is create a series of records that would be released much in the way like a magazine subscription would be, to where with every record that comes out, we are gifted an opportunity to learn what's going on in the community from both Dana with Cape Fear River Watch and from Andy with Coastal Plain Conservation Group. And so inside of each of the records are these liner notes. And every time we release a new record, the liner notes are literally written like the week before we go to print, or the week before we release the record. So it is as up-to-date as possible with the most current information to keep us all informed with what's going on. So for us, again, it was just an opportunity to take that light as we're driving ahead, and we're still releasing regular records, for artists and just kind of doing what a record label does. What we like to do every now and then is take that light, shine it to the side, and say, hang on a second, guys. Don't forget about this whole thing going on over here. We really got to deal with this. And if anything, you just need to be aware of it so you can hopefully live a healthy life here in Wilmington with it. So today, September 27th, we are here celebrating, tonight I should say, we're celebrating, this is the release of our 4th installment of This Water is Life. So today is actually the release date of this record. So, thank you. Not to get into any bit of a sales pitch of any sort, but there's a party tonight at Satellite. If anyone's interested, it's a free event. Both artists, Fuzz Jax is the hip-hop artist, Tritten is the rock and roll artist. They'll be performing tonight. So this is the 4th one. We're already working on number 5. This is a permanent installation project. We partnered with, I think it's fair for me to highlight our sponsors. Gravity Records is one of our sponsors. Persephone Farms is one of our sponsors. Satellite themselves are a sponsor. And then Fortis Builders is actually a developer from out in Burgaw. They're one of our sponsors. It's a friend of mine. But they came forth and donated the money to provide seed money, if you will, when we started the first one. And so the sale of this record just simply rolls over to make the next record. What that provides for the artists in the community is that it's an outlet for them to get their music on vinyl. And if you speak to any musician, almost any, I think I've only met one who didn't really agree with this, but almost any musician will tell you this is the goal. Vinyl is final, as they say in the music industry. Getting your music on record is a big deal. And so the act that we can go to a young artist, such as Tritten, they're a brand new band, and gift them that opportunity with no cost to them to have their music on wax is pretty cool. It's pretty glorious. So in addition, Josh Putnam is a gentleman who takes all the photographs. In fact, his photographs were what inspired me. In fact, so to put it that way, Josh himself was shedding light on what was happening in the community every time it flooded. And Josh isn't even a photographer. In fact, he's poli-sci major and such, and he works more in politics. But he lived in the downtown community, and every time he'd go for a walk and he realized this was happening, he'd document it and he'd make it available for people to see. And for me, this actually is what gave us the idea to combine the hip hop with the rock and roll. The juxtaposition, if you will, of the urban environment mixed in with Mother Nature, highlighting the beauty of the urban environment. I really like the idea of that. So that's kind of where these pictures come from. They're all from Josh. And then we work with, it's Ben Billingsley. Actually, I'll show it to you this way. Ben Billingsley from CFCC. He's, I think, the director of printmaking might be his official title. But he actually makes the artwork that shows up on the B side of the record. And in this case, it's the magnificent Ram's Hoard snail that Andy Wood from Coastal Plain Conservation Group talks about in his liner notes. So for every one of the records, Andy gives us a story about one indigenous animal. And then so for every record, that animal is then illustrated on the back, or on the B side of the record. So that's This Water is Life. This is our collection, if you will, of projects to help the community. This is our full collection of everything we've been doing. I hope you can see, right, and perhaps agree that perhaps that there is some benefit to finding reflection in what you do, finding an opportunity to reflect, whether you're looking back. One analogy actually I want to go back to and share, because I meant to share it. When I was using the example of looking in the rearview mirror with the cop car, the other one is that think about where people talk to you. You can't live in the past, right? You can't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror. It's physically impossible. You will eventually come to a stop one way or the other if you're permanently looking backwards, right? But it is important to reflect back. By reflecting back, you can see how the opportunities present themselves to create growth for yourself. For me, the idea of reflecting forward is a little bit more important. That's something we're all going to have to do. If you're using this analogy of driving through life, right? The idea is at some point you are going to need to turn on headlights. You can't drive a car without turning on headlights at some point. At some point, it's going to be dark, it's going to rain, it's going to be fog, whatever it is. And you're going to need the tools in life that you've been provided, that you've earned, that you've gifted to yourself, that you've built up. You're going to need those tools. Take them, reflect on your community around you, help the people around you, help provide. It's not just helping you, it's literally going to help everyone else. I think Carrie's a perfect example of this with what we're here for today. If you think about it, I honestly, when we spoke, when she invited us and we got on the phone, I do remember my initial first question was, where's the money? I genuinely was like, all right, who's making money on this whole thing? She's like, no, it's not that at all. She was really clear with what the mission was. And that's when it clicked with me immediately. She's doing the same thing I'm doing. She's been driving down the road. She was in Raleigh for a number of years. She reflected on her experience when she came back here to Wilmington. She looked back in that rearview mirror and realized, hey, I'm seeing this up ahead. I remember what we were doing back there. And if I just go get that minivan and grab all my friends and we jump in that minivan together and we turn these lights on, look what you get. This is pretty cool. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk. And a round of applause to Carrie, for sure.
We have time for a couple of Q&A if anyone has a question.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you. First of all, thank you for being here, and we're glad you landed in Wilmington. You're a huge asset. Thank you. And thank you for your commitment to Vine. It's great. When you were talking about the tragedy of 2009, I thought you were metaphorically speaking of Spotify. So that leads me to my question. Who is your customer? I know DJs buy albums.
Yeah. So I feel like I want to start answering it this way. This is not a business that we make our living on. Okay, I work for a company called Approve. It's a tech company. It's partnered with the Wilmington. So hey, that's where I make my dollars, right? So this as a business is a legit business. It does generate profit and moves forward. But I can tell you this, the reason I do it the way I do it is I never want to make the decision to have to release a record for the purpose of a project or a profit. And so for me, genuinely, and Tracy can confirm this, every record we make, we're doing it extremely selfishly because I just want it on my shelf, because I'm the collector. If you saw our collection, you'd understand. We're like, it's just an easy way for me to get an extra record without going to her to say, hey, can I get $30 to go buy another record? Instead, I just created this business that allows me. Josh, who's a collector too, started to calculate. He's like, wait a second, that's a good idea. He's like, that I'm actually not lying. That's a major factor as to why I do what I do with the records I do. In fact, if I may point out my friend Brian over here in the back of the room, he has a band, Somerset. Brian, I think, is one of the most prolific songwriters in Wilmington, hands down. And his band, Somerset, was recording music back in the early 2000s that this day and age, to your point of like the digital world, it wasn't seeing the light of day. So like literally, Tracy and I remember one weekend, we were just jamming out to it on, I think it was on Bandcamp is where the music was. Her and I are just geeking out at the house, just dancing around and be like, oh my God, this music's amazing. And so I remember calling him and just saying, can I just put a record out for you? It's the one with the hang glider. It's from the right side, it's the fourth one, next to the one with the bars. It's kind of periwinkle in color. That was the only reason. I just wanted him to have a copy and I wanted me to have a copy. That was it. The record sold out, but that's why I did it. So I genuinely don't ever have an expectation of an audience. I just want to put the record out. So, I'm fortunate that we sell it. So.
Questions?
Alex, up front.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And Carrie and the team, thank you so much for this. This is awesome. So with record, like making a record, if someone has music like online, do you have to re-record to put it on a record, or do you?
You can. It's preference. I go back to this, at the end of the day, I'm really just a punk rock kid that just likes to just have fun. I don't put that pressure on the musicians, but there are some musicians that come to us with our projects to say, hey, I'm going to make, and the step in the recording is the mastering. So you would still do all the same recording that you would do in the studio. You're going to do all the mixing, all the production, all of that. But at the point that you're going to master, and for anyone who's not in the music industry, mastering is like waxing your car after washing it. You don't have to, but it's kind of a good idea to do it. It does shine things up a bit. And so when it comes to a vinyl record, you could master it for vinyl versus digital, and there would be two different kind of paths you're going to take. It's a little bit more maybe required if you're getting into like more electronic music. Definitely EDM style of music would be a case. Anything that's heavy in the dynamic range of you're going to get those ultra subsonic lows or highs or whatever. Then the mastering might be pretty important. For a lot of our rock and roll records, I personally never push the artist, but I do explain to them this is the road you can take, and it's your choice to do what you want. I'm more about just let's just have fun and put a record out. So, hope that answers. Yes.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
So once you get to this point, which is fantastic, how does it get to the people?
Distribution, basically. You work with another, just like any other supply chain, a distributor. You sell a chunk of records to a distributor. That distributor then sells them independently to stores. Or most of our sales go through just literally direct sales. So again, if you follow us in the community, you see we're at markets all the time. So that's how we prefer to sell personally. We'll literally get out in the streets. And then the musicians themselves selling them at shows, as well as then online. We have a customer base that just simply, I have many customers from other cities that I have no clue who they are, but they just buy what we release. Whenever we put something out, they're on our mailing list, and I'm sending one to Salt Lake City. It's like, all right, great. But yeah, distributors is the first answer to that, and that's just like any other business would be. No. Oh. Hey, Matt.
Thank you. I was curious, I don't know if you mentioned this or we've talked about it, but the name, where does Fort Hall Records come from?
Oh, yeah, a great question. It's actually really simple. It's literally an old Army fort in Tucson, Arizona, and it was just the neighborhood that Tracy and I lived in. When we started the record label, we genuinely thought, no disrespect, Wilmington, we just thought we were going to live in Tucson our whole life. We moved there with that kind of feeling, and we were there for 7 years, and we really thought it was going to be the case. So when we started the label, the intent of the label was to focus strictly on Tucson artists at that time. So up into Luz de Vida, all those, there's some 7-inch records, small 45s, all of those over there, they're all Tucson bands. So it was really just as simple as we just wanted to give it a name that was indigenous to the town. I don't believe there's another Fort Lowell anywhere in the world. In fact, usually when people see Fort Lowell, if they are familiar with Tucson, that's the first thing. They're like, oh, you're from Tucson, aren't you? Well, not from, but the label's from there. And it was, the statue, which is the Calgary logo there that you see. Oh, wait, do I have that hat on today? But anyway, yeah, I do. The statue that's that logo was, like 100 yards from our house? We lived on the park, and that was just an icon. And that's how you knew when I told people, like, hey, come to our house, we're at Fort Lowell. I do believe, I don't think I'm incorrect with saying this, I think Jack Kerouac wrote about it on the road. I believe he stayed there. It turned to kind of being a bit of an artist colony. Yeah, that's Fort Lowell.
One more. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.